Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something huge. We're looking at a deeply significant piece of legislation, Pakistan's Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act, commonly known as PECA. Now, we'll certainly cover the original framework, but here is where it gets really interesting. We're also going to integrate the sweeping 2025 amendments to show you exactly how the digital world is regulated over there right now. Honestly, whether you're an everyday internet user, an IT pro, or a corporate executive, understanding the compliance requirements and the real operational stakes hidden inside this rulebook is absolutely essential for your business strategy. So let's just dive right into it. This federal statute basically lays down the law for the entire digital ecosystem. It sets the rules of engagement for you, for tech platforms, and for the government itself. It's not just some boring list of things you can't do. It's actually a comprehensive manual dictating how digital businesses must operate, how data has to be handled, and exactly how the state can step in when things go off the rails. All right, legal documents can be super dense, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit 1, the scope of PECA, 2, defining electronic crimes, 3, the new regulatory authority, 4, investigating the digital realm, and finally, 5, rules for service providers. Okay, moving right into Section 1, the scope of PECA. Let's look at the big picture. The absolute crucial point here is the extraterritorial reach. Get this, PECA applies to every single citizen of Pakistan, no matter where they are on the globe. But it also applies to literally anyone, regardless of nationality, if they commit an act outside of Pakistan that affects a person, a piece of property, an information system, or data located within the country. So from a strategic standpoint, if your global tech business even brushes against Pakistani digital infrastructure, boom, this law is immediately on your radar. Which brings us to Section 2, defining electronic crimes. The law carves out a very distinct, special category for what it calls critical infrastructure. It basically separates your everyday run-of-the-mill networks from systems that are absolutely vital to national security, defense, or human life. We're talking about assets where a breach could cause massive economic impacts or even cost lives. For businesses operating in these high-stakes sectors, your compliance and security strategies just have to be completely airtight because the legal fallout from a breach here is incredibly severe. To put that into perspective, just look at how the stakes change. If someone gains unauthorized access to a standard information system, the penalty is, well, relatively mild. It's up to 3 months in prison or a 50,000 rupee fine. But look at what happens if that unauthorized access touches critical infrastructure. No joke, the potential prison time multiplies by 12, and the fine skyrockets 20-fold. The law very strategically scales its punishments based entirely on the systemic risk of the target. When we shift to everyday cybercrimes, the law weighs the severity of different actions very distinctly. Just notice how electronic fraud, which means using an information system to trick someone for financial gain, carries a massive maximum fine of 10 million rupees. Meanwhile, offenses like spoofing, which is sending fake data to hide your identity, and cyberstalking carry heavy prison terms of up to 3 years. It's clear the state is sending a very loud message here. They want to protect both financial integrity and personal dignity online. And just to be perfectly clear on the terminology they use, creating, spreading, or even just offering to supply viruses, malware, or unauthorized hidden functions falls squarely under their definition of malicious code. Writing code that intentionally tanks system performance or messes with data is an explicit, defined offense under PECA, and it'll get you up to 2 years in prison. All right, let's jump to Section 3, the new regulatory authority. This is where those 2025 amendments really kick in. The newly established authority is called the Social Media Protection and Regulatory Authority, or SMPRA for short, and this body holds some seriously sweeping powers. Not only are they tasked with promoting online safety, but they actively regulate anything deemed unlawful or offensive content. Now, if you are running a digital platform, your biggest takeaway is this: SMPRA holds the ultimate kill switch. If a platform doesn't comply with the act, SMPRA has the explicit legal power to partially or completely block that platform in Pakistan until they fall in line. So who actually wields this kind of power? Well, it's composed of 9 members. And it requires a really interesting mix of government officials, like reps from the Ministry of Interior and the Telecom Authority, alongside specialized industry experts. The law actually mandates that they include professionals with deep 10-year backgrounds in software engineering, law, media, and private sector IT. That's highly strategic, ensuring the regulatory body actually has the hardcore technical literacy required to govern these complex digital networks. Now, the most crucial detail regarding SMPRA is speed. The law explicitly states that if someone files a complaint about fake information, this authority has a maximum of just 24 hours to pass an order, and that order can include immediately removing or blocking access to that information. For social media companies, 24 hours is literally the blink of an eye. If you're building a business strategy in this jurisdiction, it means you must have local teams on high alert, ready to respond to these rapid-fire legal directives. Let's move on to Section 4, investigating the digital realm. How do they actually enforce all this? Well, the law lays out a very strict procedural flow. Authorized officers can't just go rogue and start seizing servers or downloading your content. First, they have to identify the specific data needed, satisfy a court that there are reasonable grounds for the investigation, and formally get a warrant for search, seizure, or disclosure. And when executing that warrant, the officer is legally obligated to use technical measures to maintain the absolute integrity and chain of custody of that digital evidence. But here is a really fascinating balance embedded right into the code. Even with a warrant, the law requires officers to use a light touch. They actually have to act with proportionality. The text explicitly directs investigators to avoid disrupting legitimate business operations, and they can't just shut down information systems that have nothing to do with the specific offense. The state is actively trying to balance its need to investigate crime with the economic reality of keeping digital businesses up and running. Interestingly, the law also directly tackles the modern reality of encrypted data. PECA explicitly empowers officers to demand decryption information. What that means is, if an investigator has a valid warrant, they can legally require anyone holding the decryption keys or passwords to hand over access to the data or the device in a completely unencrypted readable format. No hiding behind encryption here. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Rules for Service Providers. The law provides a vital safe harbor here. Tech platforms and ISPs are generally protected from civil and criminal liability for the stuff their users post, so long as they're just providing access in good faith. They aren't legally obligated to proactively monitor every single thing users do. But this protection comes with a catch. It requires total cooperation. When presented with a warrant, platforms have to provide technical assistance. And get this, they are legally bound to absolute secrecy. They have to hide the existence of any state investigation from the affected user for a mandatory 14 days. As we wrap up this explainer, we really have to ask, how will the creation of SMPRA and these strict investigative tools ultimately impact our daily digital lives going forward? PECA is clearly attempting this massive high-wire balancing act. You've got expansive state power and rapid enforcement on one side, trying to balance with safe harbors and business continuity on the other. So, will this framework create a secure digital haven, or will 24-hour takedown windows and gag orders end up stifling digital expression and innovation? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning everything, and I'll see you next time.